Hello there and welcome to our second part of question 5 in our programming paper series. So in this one we're looking at doing a little bit more on the coding side and getting 12 marks for this next question. So we've just completed 5A, which is the part where we're adding in the save button, and we're also doing the count staff with specific details problem. Now moving down to AII, it says create a new form or program that will allow IceZone to implement the algorithm you designed as part of question 4. Input a temperature. If the value is 100, the message displayed should be program terminated. Output the appropriate message for the temperature. Input as shown in the table. So we've got our ranges and our messages. Then it says store the last temperature on disk in a file called iceresult.txt, confirm the storage of the last temperature to disk on the screen, and retrieve the last temperature from the disk for a total of 12 marks. Save your work as IceZone. And then if we just look at this next one, using the internal facility of the IDE, add annotation to your code from question AII that would clearly explain the design of your program to another software developer. Save your annotations in the same file as 5AII above. And that's worth 8 marks for annotation. 8 marks. So we can do these together for a total of 20 marks. So basically all we've got to do is we've got to program our pseudocode from question 4. So let's jump straight in then. So back to my code here. You can see that I have my ice staff, the save form that they've provided with me. And it says you can make a new form or make an entirely new program. Now, I'm going to try and reuse as much code as possible that they've provided with me, because why wouldn't you? They give you the code. So I'll go to project and I'll add a new form. That's the first option, add Windows form. And I'll give this a name and I'll call it temp check. Click add and you'll see now that I have 2 forms. I've got ice staff and temp check in there. And here's my temp check form. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to have one button on here, and I will make this up as I go, I suppose. I will need to be able to navigate between these forms. So I think what I'm going to need is a little bit of navigation here. And I'll just put in this one, home, btn home. So if you double click this, what I'll do is I'll say iStaff, the name of the first form, dot show, bracket, so show that form, and I'll say me dot hide, bracket, and in the iStaff one, just take a button, text, temp check, btn, temp check, double click, temp check.show, me.hide, run the form. It's going to show up with iStaff first, and there we are. And if I just click temp check, you'll see it pops up with this one. I go home, pops up with that one. Temp check, home, and they just move between each other. Nice. Bottom one doesn't do anything yet, so let's start with this one. Design. I'll put check. Temperature, btn check temp, double click it, everything will be actioned from this button. Now if you remember, what happened was I had a variable, call it current temp, as real. Now if you type in real from your pseudocode, that's not going to work. So in Visual Basic, you've got a single, you could use a double, or even a decimal. They're all of floating point value. So if I use decimal, then I'll say current temp is given the value of an input from the user. Now, inputs from the user can come as input boxes, and I can just say, please enter the current temp. Now, to save me jumping back and forward between forms all the time, I'm just going to go to project, iStaff properties, and I'm going to change the startup form here, and I'm going to change to temp check. What that'll mean is every time I click start, just that second form pops up. And that's just going to save me a little bit of time, stop me clicking in between things. So there it is, it pops up there. I'll just get off that. Just need to test this out. Check temperature, please enter the current temp, 13 degrees. Okay, nothing happened. And I can check that it's being put in there by just doing a message box and just output current temp. Now, I strongly suggest that you use these print statements as much as possible just to test bit by bit. Enter the current temp, 2.5 degrees, 2.5 degrees. Perfect. Okay, so I know it's being stored properly in my variable. And the next line that I need to use is probably a do while loop. So I'm going to do while current temp is not equal to 100. And all I'm going to do in here is I'm probably going to move this line in here. Now, when this is declared, it's going to be 0. So that means it'll do while current temp is not equal to 100. And it should ask me for this. And it says if current temp is equal to 100, then message box to the user, that should say program terminated, else carry on. So I'll just show that for you. Carry on. Test it again. Very important, testing as we go. Check temperature, please enter the current temp. The current temp is 45, carry on. 45, carry on. Keep typing in 45, 78, carry on. If I type in 100, program terminated, and it stops. Perfect. So far, so good. And then what I need to do is I need to start with the conditions then. So if we're carrying on, my conditions should be if the current temp is greater than minus 2.1, then message box. Now you could do this, you could output this in a list box if you wanted to. Temperature to high, but I'm just going to keep it nice and simple. Else if current temp is less than or equal to, I think it was minus 2.1, wasn't it? Minus 2.1, and current temp is greater than or equal to minus 4.0. And the message for this one should be, let me just check the sheet, it should be message box suitable for general skating. Else if, our next condition, current temp minus 5.5. So current temp is less than or equal to 4.1 and current temp is greater than or equal to minus 5.5. And the message there should be message box, bracket, bracket, speech marks, suitable for competition skating. If the current temp is less than or equal to minus 5.6 and current temp is greater than or equal to minus 9.0, then we output that this is suitable for ice hockey. Suitable for ice hockey. Then, final one, else if the current temp is less than 9.0, that's a negative 9.0. I need to check that because sometimes, there we go, sometimes get a little bit sloppy with that, so we need to be very, very careful. If it's less than 9.0, minus 9.0, then we message box, fault detected, end if, and loop. Now I just need to test this with some data. So here we are, and let's go minus 2.2, so it's general skating. Let's go in between the third one, minus 5.6, so let's go negative 6.6, that should be ice hockey, that's correct. 4.1, so let's go 4.5, so negative 4.5. Competition skating, that's fine, good. And then fault detected, so if it's less than 9.0, so minus 23 degrees, fault detected, perfect. And if it's negative 1.1, the temperature's too high, it's going to be pretty much a liquid. if you're not careful. And that's it. So our current temp is 100 and we finished. Program terminated. Perfect. That's good. That's good. So what we need to do now is go back and check the question itself. So we've got create a new program, IceZone to implement algorithm. Yeah, we've done that. Input temperature, we've done that. If the value is 100, display program terminated. Yes. Output the appropriate messages for the temperatures input as shown. We've done that. And we've got store the last temperature on disk in a text. So the last temperature entered before we terminate, store that on a disk called iceresult.txt. Iceresult.txt. Okay, I can do that. Let's go do that. And then confirm storage of last temperature on the screen and retrieve it. So first, let's store it and do that message then. Let's go back to our program. So once it's finished, once the program's been terminated, what I will do is I need to open the file, store the current temp, close the file, tell the... So I might as well use the code that they have provided me with to actually store things. And what they did when we did the btn save, if I just copy all of this, try and adapt what they've done. So I don't think I need a record structure. I do need my pointer to the stream writer. It's not called staff.txt anymore. It's called iceresult, I think. Yep, iceresult.txt. Yeah. Populate record structure. I don't need to do that. Don't need to do any of that because I've not got a structure. I need to write the line in, but I've only got one parameter, which is the current temp. And then we close the file. Do something on this part. So this is write the current temp to the file. Close the file. And I'll put last temp saved. And I think, you know what, I think that's it. Let's test this out. So before I start, I'm just going to go and get my files, check them out. There you go, I've got Ian and John in there. Notice how there's no text file yet in there. So let's just see what happens if I run this. Let's just see what happens. Click on the current temp. So enter the current temp. Current temp is, let's do -2.6. Suitable for general skating. And let's go -4.4. That's competition skating. So competition skating. Okay, fine. I enter 100 now. The program gets terminated. It says last temp saved. And you can see there, iceresult has been created as a text document. It's got 1 kilobyte of data in it. So if we double click it, it says 100. Now 100 was the last temperature that was entered because that's our terminating temperature. So we need to think about getting the temperature into a variable that's not 100 because 100 is terminating and we don't want to save that. So if I just delete that out of my text file, I save it, or I could even come in and just delete the file if I wanted to. So what I'm going to do is a quick fix around this then, is I'll just put in here, up top, I'll put in dim, last temp as decimal. And where it says temperature too high, I'll just put last temp equals current temp. So what that'll do is that will pass over, if we reach the if statement here, we'll pass over the current temp into our last temp variable. And even if we enter 100 on the next pass, it won't set one of these variables. And all I need to do is change, when we write the line, instead of writing current temp, we write last temp in there instead. And let's see if that fixes the problem. A nice simple solution to what we're trying to do here. So here's my form again. Sorry, here's my folder and here's my form. Enter the current temp. So my current temp is -2.6. 3.6. That's general skating. Come along again, minus 4.4. That should be competition skating, which it is. I click OK, and I click 100. I press 100, and program terminated. Last temp saved. You'll see ice result appear again. Double click it, and minus 4.4 was the last number that was stored in there. Very good. Now, just to double check that I can store multiple things in there, if I put in minus 6.7 in there, I click OK, it's ice hockey, put in 100, program terminated, last temp saved, go back into my file, and there we go, 6.7. Perfect. So that's those two bits done of my exam paper. And finally, retrieve the last temperature from the disk. Last temperature from the disk. Okay, so let's have a go at that then. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have another button in here. I'm going to call it last temp from file. I'm going to say btn last temp. btn last temp. Oh, Timo, temp. In we go. btn last temp. And all I'll do here is I'll just double check that, yep, the event's working. And I'll go back to iStaff again because I'm going to pick at some of these lines here. Now, I said this line here was quite important before. Dim staff data as string, read all lines. I want to get all the lines from my file into an array. So just copy this whole line out like this. Go over to my temp check, whack this in. And it says staff data. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll change that to temp data. So these are my temperature data array. File, read all lines. Now, I don't like this because it's like, well, what is file? I don't know what that means. And that's because inside our file.readAllLines here, I've not actually imported the right packages. So what I need to do is go to the top, make sure I import system.io. That's the package that the exam board is using. So make sure I add that in. And if you import any packages for anything, they always go above the public class down here. Okay, and now you'll see the color changes and it gets accepted. Perfect. So now I've got my array. And if you remember, to loop through the array, we use a static loop, which is a for loop. For I equals 0, so arrays start at 0, 2, and they did the upper bound. So if we use your upper bound, and I put in there temp data, press enter, and let's just check, let's just output each element of the array to make sure that it's actually retrieving things properly. And just output that. That's all I want to do. Just want to output each item from my file then. If this outputs numbers, then it proves that I've recalled from the file, and it should display two numbers because I've got two numbers in my file, if I can find it. Here we go, ice result, got minus 4.4 and minus 6.7. So if I do that, click it, so blank. Uh-oh, Ian, John. Well, that's weird, isn't it? Why is it doing that? Well, it's because John has made a silly mistake. We're not trying to recall from staff. We're trying to recall from ice result. Is it a capital I? That's the question. Yes, it is. Ice result.txt. Run that again. Let's try again. Looking for two numbers. Minus 4.4 and minus 6.7. Perfect. And all I need to do is output that very last result. That's all. Just the last result. There's a couple of ways you could do this. Really, really simple. I'll just put dim last result as, it can be a string, doesn't matter. And in here, what I'll do is I'll just change that message box for last result equals temp data at position of I. Once the loop's finished, I'll just message box and say the last result in the file was space ampersand to concatenate the different data together, and I'll put last result. So the last result in my file was 6.7, I think, minus 6.7. Run this again. Let's see if this actually returns the right result. Last temp from file was minus 6.7. Perfect. Now if I go and check temperature, let's see if we can just test this out. 5.5. So competition skating. 100. Program terminated. Last temp saved. Now if I click this, it should be minus 5.5. And there we go. Perfect. So just double check as we go through here. All my code is working. I just need to now annotate what I have done. Okay. So I'm just going to put in here, takes you back to the ICE staff page. That's a current form to local variables, decimal values, precondition loop that terminates if the value is not equal to 100. Takes the input from the user, output suitable message like that. Open the file, so new stream writer variable in there. Opens the ICE result file. Do something, so write the current temp to the file. That's fine. Technical terminology: a parameter is or an argument, it's sometimes called, is the thing inside the brackets. We close the file and then we tell the user the temp is saved. Now in here you have this, an if statement inside an if statement is called a nested selection statement. Compares temperature ranges and is used so that both conditions have to be true. That's fine, that's self-explanatory. Within those ranges, range is fine, yep. And I'll just put on here, last temp is used to keep track of the last temperature. Last result holds last element from the file, reads all the lines from the text file and places it into array line by line. Loop through the array. It's a static loop. There we go. Concatenate the string with the variable for a suitable message. And that's it. That is our entire program. That does everything that's expected of us. And it's always worthwhile going back to check that everything's been done. We retrieved the last temperature now. We've confirmed the storage. We've saved it properly. Using internal facilities, we've added annotation to our code for 8 marks. It clearly explains what's going on. And I think, yeah, that looks like it's everything. So I reckon there we're on for full marks. And that is the whole programming paper. So I hope you enjoyed that. And it's obviously, there's a lot of information. I went very quickly to try and keep these video sizes down. But like I said, if you want to practice these, contact your programming teacher and they will send you files from the different years and different papers that we've got. And thanks for watching. I'll see you again very soon.